guys. I'm joined, as always, by the winner of the Curve Bubbles Kill Tournament, winner of Fist and Tankard, Coach Soter Dave. What's going on, Mr. Dave?
Hello, Stridah.
And of course, the best voice at this point in gaming, Skadii Games, the Longsword Master.
Hey, what up, guys? What up?
And of course, we have our special guest. We're so excited to get this man on here, Jesse from the Renown team. Welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I'd love to be here. I'm excited for this.
Now, if you guys haven't heard about Renown before, we've spoken about it a few times on the podcast. It's people call it the medieval Rust. So it's a survival based game with all the elements of like an Ark Survival, a Valheim, a Rust, but you add into it something kind of like Mordhau or Chivalry's combat. And, it's right up our alley over here as Chivalry or Mordhau players. So we're real excited to get our hands on it and further once it gets a little further in development. The game looks really great. Jesse, you want to tell us a little bit just about what Renown is and stuff?
Yeah. So I guess for anyone that isn't aware of what the game is, basically it's a medieval survival game. We're taking systems very similar to Rust. We want that sort of fast-paced, short wipe cycles, quick progression, and then bringing in a combat system very similar to the Chivalry one. And that really is the gist of it, building castles, raiding each other, and then getting wiped and doing it all over again and again and again. That really is sort of like the elevator pitch of what the game is.
Okay, now you mentioned short wipe cycles, which that's something that I love to hear because I played a little bit of a survival game, Ark Survival, when it came out, and my general experience in that game was I'd log on for 2 hours, build a little hut, a little base, get a weapon or whatever, log off, and I'd come back and it's all destroyed and gone. So I'm assuming we're trying to avoid some of that stuff.
So as in the sense of offline raid protection, is that sort of what you meant, or?
Yeah, just being a little bit more conscious of our players' time.
Yeah, so it's a very disputed and discussed topic, offline raid protection, and I'm personally from the side that there shouldn't be any offline raid protection, and there's a lot of reasons for that. I think the main one for me is if you are this person that would probably quit a game when all your loot is taken off you without your control, a game that wipes every week. The game deletes your stuff automatically every week. Mm-hmm. So I mean, if having it does feel bad, but ultimately I think the hardcore player bases that don't mind being offline rated keep games alive like survival games. And another thing as well is when you have offline raid protection, when you're offline, there's no incentive to come back online. It's sort of a system that actually makes you not play the game because you could go, okay, I could jump on now, but it's actually peak hour. There's so many people online. I don't want to lose my stuff. I'm just going to go play this other game with some mates that are playing it, and then I'll jump on later. And you know what? You probably won't jump on later. You'll keep playing whatever the game that is. And then you're like, oh, do I really want to get on the next day? I think with games like Rust and that have no offline raid protection, that constant want to be back there so that no one takes your stuff.
You have to defend your territory.
Yeah, is what makes it so engaging and constantly on your mind. But it's a very disputed topic, I guess.
Yeah, no, I know personally I love the part of games where you get to take other people's stuff. So that's but so we're mostly all from a Chivalry background, Chivalry Mordhau. Most of our community mostly plays that stuff. What would we be able to do in Renown? I know you mentioned like the building and castle stuff. What would the appeal be for players like us who love that combat system? Like, what different experiences would we get?
It's going to be a lot different. The fact that it's not going to be a game where you're going through rounds or even just constantly dueling. The main difference, in my opinion, I've thought about this a lot, is really just the gear fear. Is just adding. You never have any sense of loss apart from maybe your pride when you lose a duel, or you're like, oh, the team's going to lose this game mode because I'm not playing well enough. The difference is with this is at every point in the game, everything you have on you in your base has value, and the fights are going to feel, I think, a lot different. Sometimes you get in a stressful fight in any of these games, and it is quite intense. You want to win. But it adds an extra level when you know you're about to lose an hour's work when they kill you. And then also the interactions of people. You know, you'll be running around with your group instead of just fighting, because in these other games you really just fight. That's the purpose. You could have a chat with them, talk about their day, maybe trade items, get into an alliance,
role play,
raiding someone else. Yeah, role play. The level of interaction between players is just going to be very, very different, and I think that sets a tone for the whole game, really.
Yeah, no, I know both Dave and Skadii are very excited for the VoIP and the role play aspects of the game.
I want to be very toxic.
It's a good place for it. These games, perfect for.
How long can they hear my voice after I kill them? Is there a certain amount of time?
That's a good question. I think you can hear them a little while after. Well, you do get downed majority of the time, so you can talk trash to them while they're.
That's ultimate toxicity.
I want to zoom out of their dead corpse and me talking trash.
Yeah.
Nah,
I've said it before.
Talking our language right here.
A melee game is where proximity chat deserves to be, because now I can fight someone and they're forced to listen to me. They have to, even if they're better than me. They have like a minimum 10 seconds of Dave, and they can't do anything about that.
Well, it also makes sense in this genre, but in like Chivalry or Mordhau, you couldn't really have it because there would be so many voices all at once, I think, right? So,
no, I just mean a survival game. Like in a survival game, right? I can't even get a word out before he's going to shoot me in Rust.
Yeah.
Or Tarkov, let's say. How often are you going to talk to someone in Tarkov?
Okay. Yeah.
Right? But in
head
here,
eyes is the language in Tarkov.
Yeah, but I can beg in this game. You know, I can beg for my life while I'm fending him off.
Right.
Well, you can even chat outside of chase range, so you would be able to hear someone with the ability to leg it out of that fight. So you that is another thing that I love, is that you could discuss a conversation with someone without
you could make a truce.
Without you ever being actually in danger. Like at any point, either one of you could turn and run and still talk. Whereas I think that's something that's very new to a game like this. Like most games, like you mentioned, you just die.
Is there like range on the voice? Like it's the further you are away, the lighter it sounds?
Yeah, basically. We'll probably add like a yelling mechanic, so like you can change to say get a bit further range or something.
I mean that's also cool, because the people who don't want it can head in the other direction from the voice, and the the people who want to go kill them can follow the voice and get closer.
Exactly. I also want to yell while we're all charging the castle. You know, just imagine like 10 people yelling at you.
For sieges, make sure you add a cone where I can hold the cone like this and and yell outside.
That's a great idea.
A battle horn or something like that.
We definitely want that.
Yeah,
we definitely want that. I think that would be sick to see. Like just one guy that's just got like drums and a horn. That's just at the back of the group. Like,
a drummer boy, the bard.
Put the fear of God in.
Yeah, exactly. That'd be sick.
Yeah. No. In the slasher genre, the bards have always been held in high esteem. So, we gotta have our music over here in these games. Now, I know the building system is one of the things that I'm most excited for in the game, and one of the things that I think takes these games to just another level, because you don't just get the people who like killing things, you don't get the people who like just surviving in that aspect. You get the people who like Minecraft and Valheim and want to make some crazy cool stuff. Like how much freedom is going to be in the building? Like are we going to see like replicas of real world castles, and like how expansive is it going to be? Yeah,
well, we've actually had on your last point, we've actually had some people do that. We've had someone created the Colosseum. Someone created, I think it was, I've forgotten the name, and I'm probably going to get roasted for this, but the one from Lord of the Rings. Yes, that's the one.
There we go. That was my favorite
No
scene.
way. Sick.
Yeah, and it looks great. I mean, of course, like it was being made with square pieces, so there's only a limit to what you can do. But some people have already done that, and it's really cool to see. We actually were talking about hopefully having, once we drop NDA, having a sort of like a base design competition each week where people can create crazy designs.
I think that would be amazing. Yeah.
It's awesome, it's just fun to see. But more to the reason of your point was, so there's a lot you can do. It's broken into 3 sort of subsystems of the building system. You've got like the segmented one, which is basically Rust or Arc, usually square pieces, stairs, different roof types, different wall types, doorways, windows, that sort of thing. we've got a bunch of that, so there's a lot of freedom in that alone. And then you have external walls, and this is something that we're going to be putting more emphasis on, because I think we basically just completed I just finished the models for this maybe like last week. And they're all there now. So it's basically curtain walls for your base. And these are large, like quite big. When you upgrade them to tier 3, they're basically 2x3 foundations in floor, and then they're 2 stories with a sort of battlement. And that's each piece. And that will be used to surround your base. Gatehouses, that sort of thing, connected to that.
Regarding your base building, back to what we talked about with like offline raiding, what will be the equivalent of sentry guns in Rust to protect your base while you're gone? Because obviously, there isn't really that possibility with a medieval game. But you
could have NPCs or something. That was one of my questions I wanted to ask, is the NPCs limits.
Yeah. So this is a hard one. And there's a lot of back and forth that we've talked about internally about this, because I personally, with combat AI, like as in player-owned combat AI, has never been done well, in my opinion. Not saying that it can't be done well, but usually it's quite abusable, both from the defenders and the attackers, that you can usually safe spot them. They're usually either not very strong or are way too strong. Being a survival game, anything you can get a lot of. So a big group could just have a courtyard with like 100 of these things. And if you put a limit, then there's like, okay, so is that limit based on clan size or players in the clan? It gets quite confusing. But I think the most important issue on that is we have an optimization issue. Most games do in the early development stage. AI puts a hell of a lot of strain on the server, and we're already seeing that now with just the limited AI we have, and we're about to add a sort of dynamic throttling of AI based on the player count, so that as more people join, it lowers the amount that spawn. So having the ability to sort of bring in a bunch of AI into your base and all bases is going to just mean less people on the server. So that's sort of why I don't really like the idea of having AI that you can use to defend your base. And sorry, this is probably like a long answer, but on the other point, with we'd like to have some traps as like a replacement for sort of like a turret. But ultimately in Rust, turrets, Ark, I think it's more like an offline raid protection. Their turrets are actually quite oppressive. But in Rust, for example, it's sort of just an extra thing you have to get through. It prolongs the raid for sure, and it makes it a bit more difficult. But ultimately, you're still going to get in there if you've planned correctly. There's turrets in there, like you would have, and then a couple of rockets going to take.
Like you're saying, the more experienced players already know how to get past that, and that's just an unnecessary hurdle to have, unnecessary game mechanic in your mind. Is what you're saying. Kind of. In a game like Rust, I think it's fantastic. But I don't think it would be used to stop offline raiding. Is what I meant. So traps would do the same thing. Like let's say we had an oil barrel above a doorway or something, and they come in and then they get covered in oil. Yeah, you might wipe them, but you're offline. They come back, they pick up their loot, they continue the raid. It would prolong it, which is great, and I think that helps. And especially if we want to introduce some like alerts, maybe through Discord, you'll be alerted if you're getting raided. That's cool.
Players, they figure things out so quickly too. So even if the traps or the NPCs work for a week or two, after that, everyone's figured out the meta and how to cheese them and where not to step. So
I like the idea of declaring a raid and then having to wait 10 minutes before you can enter the base. Gives me enough time to get off my toilet, get on the game, and actually defend my base.
Right.
We have considered something like that, where there's a short time before you can start, and I do like it, and I think it could work. The thing that I think could go wrong with that is it is better for larger groups, as smaller groups raiding need that surprise. If they give a large group 10 minutes notice, there's no chance they can raid them. If you can get in behind their defenses before they're online or react, like they could even be online and you've got people off farming POIs, you've got people on roads, you've got people crafting. You hear their gates get knocked down. They've got probably 5 minutes anyway to react to that. They could be in your base before. So it sort of just makes solo and small group play even harder. That's the only thing I would say might be hard with something like that.
Now you were saying, getting through their gates or whatever. When I played in the test, we had hand battering rams. What methods are we going to have long term to get into these? Because I'm sure people are going to make absolute monstrosities. How are we going to get in them? What are our options going to be?
Yeah, so hand battering rams. So they're sort of like, the way we explain it is police rams for door rams, where they have that like 2-hand thing and they smack it into the door. That's for lower tiers. So we're sort of moving that to tier 1 and tier 2. So like wood bases, you're bashing their door down. From that point onwards, you'll then have petards, which is sort of like I didn't even know these existed when we started this game. So I was like, how are we going to have this? But apparently this was a common thing. It's basically like a bell nailed to a plank with gunpowder stuffed in it and a fuse, and they nailed it to gate doors, lit it, and then it would blow inwards and blow the gate down. So we're gonna have those, which is sort of like, we're not fooling anyone. It's basically satchel charges or C4. Like it is what it is. But they'll be mostly for gates and doorways, and then we're gonna have, of course, the actual large siege weapons, this is endgame catapults, trebuchet, and battering rams, and hopefully eventually siege towers, because I think that's going to be really cool to be able to push a tower up and get free access over their walls. But yeah, that's basically the main two. Like the catapults and trebuchets will be the main two that you'll use. Yeah.
Will there be like ladders that you can?
Yep.
Sweet.
Yeah. So we'll have. This was an issue we already had seen where we had normal ladders for your base, and we're like, we'll just make those the ones you can raid with. And then we found out that because they were so cheap and easy to make, people would just climb all over people's bases. Yeah. And it was okay. So now we have siege ladders that actually require a bit of extra resource. You're gonna have to invest in these ladders, which doesn't make a lot of sense. It's just wood, but it has to sort of be that way so it isn't abused.
Yeah,
I won't complain.
I have a quick question about the time it takes to get back up and running. So say your base gets destroyed, kind of back to the offline question. Like how much time, because there's only a week in cycles with the servers, so it has to be fairly quick you're not going to be sitting there mining all day.
No. So I want the game to be broken, and this is what we're trying to achieve now with our survival testers. Get this sort of like gameplay loop feeling correct, is each goal needs a sort of different task. So it's always grinding. Like these games are always grinding. You're technically always doing some kind of farming, but because the farming's different, your brain's like, this is a new thing I'm doing. This isn't the same as hitting a tree over and over again. So I want like base building is trees and nodes, and then for progression, it's mostly POIs and things like that. And then raiding is currently it's a node, but I'd like to make that something different as well. So if you want to farm for a raid, it's a different task. If you farm for your base and normal gear and crafting, it's something else. And then progression, roads, and POIs.
Cool. Very cool.
The other side of that question, which was the time it should take. Initially, like at the start of the wipe, the first day is getting your base probably up to a reasonably good proportion. You're probably bordering tier 3 at the back end. You're making sure your base can probably survive the night. Day 2, you'd probably be entering tier 3 at the beginning of the day, and then raiding and fighting at the end of that. So I'd say in a space of a day to 2 days, you're going to be from nothing to raiding. And then either you get wiped out and you start again in that rest of the week. And then from, say, day 3, that's when we want to start adding some new things that maybe other games aren't doing, like timed advance. We want players to have some interesting things to make use of their gear. Once you've raided a few people out, there's not really much left to do, I guess. So we'd like to add some cool little events, like maybe like a King of the Hill sort of thing where teams have to go, and if you do that, maybe you'll get some sort of cosmetic reward or a skin or a title.
Okay. Nice. Skins?
Something like that.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, you mentioned the event. Is that going to be something that's just on the main server, or are you guys planning to do some different game modes also for the people who just want to focus on the combat and get some practice in? Like what is the survival mode going to be the only mode, or what are we going to do?
So the survival mode will be the game, but we want and it's going to be But it's going to be a lot like Rust, or any other game with community servers. And we will have official, say we might have a couple official team deathmatch, couple official duel servers. But they're just there for, like what you mentioned, like for training and just messing around for a quick fun time. And I feel like that needs to be there because, maybe people will find our combat system the one they like more, and they won't even care about the survival, and they'll just come on to play those game modes. We want that. But the most of the work we're doing is going to be the main survival server, and that's where we'll have the timed events. That being said, we currently have our first iteration of a test of this, which is this castle, which is a timed in our servers right now. Horn goes off, alerts the server that these gates to this middle castle are opening in like 5 minutes. Great loot, bunch of strong AI. Everyone goes there. It's a big shit fight, and you get away with a bunch of loot. If you're still in there when the gates close, you die, basically. So it's this sort of fun.
Oh, that's pretty cool, yeah.
Do. So you gotta get in and out before.
Yeah,
you get away.
yeah.
Yeah, gotcha.
It's a lot of fun.
What would you say the timeline is on just starting, fresh wipe, to full gear? 4 hours of gameplay, 8 hours of gameplay?
As in full tier 3?
Yeah, like basically you reached the zenith, now go just kill people and do whatever you want, right? You're done farming.
Yeah, oh, well, I would say a lot of the process of getting to that point will include a lot of fighting. If you don't go to the places that are contested, it's going to take a lot longer to get there. If you're going into the risky areas and winning fights, you could get to tier 3 in, say, like, 4 hours if you really get lucky. It's all about the resources you have. There's no time gate. So, like, if you were able to get that loot, you could be naked and pick up a dead body with the loot that you need and get there. Of course, that's gonna. I don't know what circumstance.
So the resources are
that,
actually quite plentiful. You're depending on people to kill each other. So they kind of hoard.
For instance, if I jumped on an empty server now and just went around, I could progress pretty quickly because I have free reign of the entire place. I have no. The thing that makes it difficult to progress is the fact that you're going to be in danger. And if you die after 30 minutes of farming, say POI is running along a road or you're in the little village areas and you're killing AI and looting their stuff, if you get jumped by a group and you've lost 30 minutes, you're back to where you were 30 minutes ago. And now that tier 3 goal is a bit further along and they're 30 minutes closer. That's sort of the beauty of these games, I guess. But yeah, to finish your question, mostly if with considering loss and gain, you would probably be close to tier 3 by the end of that day. And that would probably be like wipe, maybe like 5 p.m. after a day of playing, probably. The game. You could hope to be there. If you got lucky-ish.
Yeah, I remember in the raid playtest, it took us like an hour or so to get full tier 3, and then that's when we started fighting, which was a hell of a lot of fun after putting all the time in to get going, and actually, all the waiting around to go finally get in the action. It was a lot of fun.
I'll say something on that really quick. We had great, and for people that aren't aware what the raid was, raid was a game mode where we increased the progression rates of everything heavily. 2 teams spawn in. It's everything that the normal game, full survival game, is, just quicker. There's a leeway period where you can't enter each other's zone. And the whole idea is you build a base and then one of you raid each other and whoever kills the other person's banner first wins the game mode. This was just a way for us to quickly test our survival features, but the feedback we got from this game mode was so good. Like, as in, people loved it. Like, we've even got people now like, oh, bring raid tests back. Like, they loved it. It's a lot of fun because it's quick. It's short, but it's everything you get out of a survival game in a short period. So we're thinking of probably going to put a bit more time into actually continuing that game mode as a side thing because that people loved it. So that was really fun.
Yeah, no, the people I played with were very, very welcoming of me coming in and recording while I was doing it, and they had everything down to like a time and amount of resources. It was like a finely tuned machine. So it was really cool to see them already with a meta and like it was awesome. It was awesome. And some of those guys built some insane bases pretty quickly.
Oh yeah, yeah. They'd pre-planned it all out, and they had a person for each job, and someone looking after the base. If not 2 people running furnaces constantly, just making sure they're pumping out. Yeah, it was good, and that's the beauty of it. If you didn't have a person running furnaces while on the other team, you lose. Like if you don't have gear, what are you gonna do?
So are there going to be like hard roles like that, like a logistics person that maybe doesn't even fight at all, and just That's cool.
Yeah, because and that's not like that. And I say that from that's sort of like emergent design. That we don't have to do anything to enforce. It's not like when you join the game.
Exactly.
But I played like thousands of hours of Rust when we had a big clan. You did have dedicated base builders, dedicated base bitches were usually what they were called. Of just they sit there, they craft, they keep the crates nice and uniform. They yell at you if you put something in the wrong spot. That's what their job was, and they loved it. I loved it. That was honestly most of my job. I loved doing that.
In a previous video I saw, you said though that you're gonna have NPCs to do tasks like that for you. So that's why I'm kind of conflicted right now. Like, so you're gonna have logistics people, but then also, because couldn't you just get an NPC to throw things in the furnace for you?
Sort of, yeah. So
supervisors.
Yeah. We want that to be a tool for people that stay in base. So we want that to be something to add to their progression, because right now they, it's the same game for them. A person that sits in a base the whole time, they have furnaces, they store, they craft, and they change loot. At least now we want to add a bit of progression for them to experience in the game, not just everyone else. So how that is going to work is you'll start off with just what is normal base, furnaces, workbenches, and then you'd increase your perimeter with external walls, and you'd create, say, a worker building, and that's what... We haven't started on these yet, but it's our next thing to do now that external walls are done.
In my head, seeing that video, I figured that the NPCs would be for, like, when you're offline or something to keep things processing and moving. That was how I interpreted it when I watched.
Yeah, so they can craft... So the idea of it would be that, so each workbench will have a building. And the purpose of it is that you don't have to sit at the workbench crafting. The only real thing it does is it's probably slightly cheaper to craft the items to incentivize actually using them at all. And then it just keeps it ticking. So you go up to a guy, you go, hey, make me like a bunch of swords or a bunch of this. You let that go. You go over and you grab out of the warehouse, you fill up the furnaces, or you give them to the furnace guy. He just now runs your furnaces easier. It just makes it a bit easier for the person at base to sort of look after,
to manage everything.
Yeah.
That's cool.
I want to gear shift onto the presence of gear, right? With all this crafting, right? Obviously, it's very important. Exactly how important? I know that you're going to be fine-tuning this based on gameplay and testing, but as it currently stands, what's the goal for gear and how it compares to not gear? Down to the hit to kill. What are we looking at?
Right now, full tier, so nakeds will... Someone with no gear, almost any game will kill you. Any sword will kill you instantly.
He wants to play, yeah.
Yeah,
he wants to play
fair enough. I feel it.
So, okay. Like, regarding the exact hit to kill... What can you expect? So, right now, if you're naked, most weapons that aren't tier 0 are going to probably one-shot you. You will just get dropped. If you misplay... So, how we want it to be is that if someone is still really geared... really skilled, if they mess up once and they're low and to a high-tiered person, they will most likely get dropped instantly. So it makes it so that, but at the same time, I will say, in a dueling scenario, it's all about like what sort of like the glass you look through. Like, is it a duel? Is it a 1vx? Is it a team battle? Is it a raid? That changes a lot. In a duel, most skilled people will be able to outplay any noob geared person in a duel. If they mess up once, you're probably dead. Like, if you get hit by their maul or something. What I was thinking of was stamina damage. So, like, for example, if you have a club and you block a halberd, then you straight up lose, like, half your stamina. So if you do play perfectly, right, even if you do read every feint, he still wins the fight because he's just more geared. That's also an option, not just hit to kill.
Yeah, so we have that in the form of durability. And the stam thing, like if you do block like a maul, you lose a bunch of stam. but also durability. Your weapon, if you block the disparity between the weapons that you're blocking, break your weapon really quick. Like if you've got a club, like a tier 0 club, and you block as wide twice, 3 times, 4 times, it could break. That's currently how it functions. But that's also like a really fine line we're trying to ride, because it's like, yes, someone with a tier 0 weapon probably shouldn't be able to do anything to a tier 3, but then it gets a bit iffy once you're in tier 2. It's closer to those higher end tier weapons. We sort of need to make that gap a lot smaller. So it's just sort of fine detailing that. We want to make sure that there is a chance that a tier 1 could kill a tier 3. But it's quite hard.
At the moment, how much damage does that club do to an armored guy in tier 3?
I think it does
like 5, 9, or is it like 20?
I think it's 9 or 10, depending where you hit them, of course. And the armor, like, and again, like, this is full tier 3. If they forgot to put their gloves on that morning, they might get a bit more damage. But I think, if I remember correctly, it's being tweaked a lot. But now we also have like quarterstaffs for lower tiers. We have like
so it's not like Mordhau training sword tier.
No.
It's more like the Mordhau quarterstaff tier.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. In between. It depends on the weapon, of course. Yeah.
Now, is Mordhau a game that you guys took a lot of inspiration for this?
Honestly, not really. It's a very similar combat system in the sense that, see, it's to people that aren't melee slashers, it's a very similar combat system, but to someone who is really into melee slashers, it's a very different combat system. Like, what we're emphasizing players to use to win is different. A lot more emphasis on swing manipulation than feints and morphs. That's really how I would put it. But yeah, it's a medieval melee slasher. So I guess in that sense, it's a lot of inspiration from Mordhau. It's a hard one. But mostly more similar to Chivalry 1, I would say. Now, in terms of combat.
Yeah. When you're talking about like dragging or swing manipulation, I think in some of the original videos, it was advertised as first person. Are you guys going to leave the third person option in there to let people pick?
Yeah,
or
so
are you guys going to lock it in?
It's a very... Luckily, because it's not an FPS, we don't have that issue, at least as much, of third person peeking. You can't sit behind a tree and then jump out and shoot him with a shotgun. But see, I'm on the side where I feel like I like just first person.
I'm with you. I'm with you.
But
no.
But from this is where we get it. But
I'll explain it once he's done, Skadii.
The game, the dev team is split like polar opposites of two being first person only to third person is essential for a good game. And we're like, well, we have to have it. And I think we might have 2 servers, one that has first person and third person, but ultimately, I think we're going to try balance the game to have both, because we don't want to split it. It's a band-aid fix. Oh, we'll just have server toggles, but it's like each server toggle you add is splitting your player base in half each time. So we really need to just pick one and sort of make it work and hope it doesn't get abused too badly.
Regarding first person, the reason that it's so important, especially if you're going with Civ 1 combat, is because like spatial awareness and manipulating your drags is an actual skill in first person, right? You can over drag in first person. You can under drag. You can miss and go right over his head if you're not paying attention. And even if you're talking about reverse overheads and reverse swings, then oh my god, it's like 10 times more skill based dependent on first person.
Yeah.
Chivalry 2's third person perspective is so good that it basically made it to where 99% of the player base doesn't use first person. So you don't want a situation like that. And that's why I believe that especially if you're emphasizing swing manipulation so much, it needs to be an emphasis on first person. I do think that the third person option should be there, but the camera should be placed in the worst possible spot possible, just to where there's basically only a cinematic mode. And that's
I think it's also important for role play as well. Like this is not related to the combat, having a third person in being able to see your characters interact almost like a story is kind of important for that. But I totally agree with the combat mechanics that you're talking about.
I don't think it should be gone. I just think it should be not viable for a fight.
Right. Yeah, so I see what you're saying.
This is the one that this is the fix I wanted to do for this, and we haven't looked at doing this yet, but I think this could work because the argument for third person by the dev team is not really in combat. It's more for every time else in the game, running around, farming.
Yeah.
So I was thinking, because we're gonna have it that you enter a combat state. Basically, when you're running, this is an issue we've come into a lot with animations and stuff. Is when you're running around like this in an open world game, you're looking at a guy just sort of standing off in the field. He looks ready to beat someone's head in. It's like it doesn't feel right. It doesn't look correct. But so we want to have a system that dynamically, based on what you're doing, moves you out of a combat state into a farming exploration state. It will change what you look like, your animations, and this is where I think we could tie in having the ability to then enter third person, and as soon as you take out a melee weapon, or you do an attack or get hit by an attack or block an attack, your camera then gets pushed into third person. Now that might feel bad, like it might feel a bit odd, but it's to solve that issue. It's hard to have both.
Yeah.
You know?
For me, it would feel weird if I couldn't have control over it, but I think I feel like making the third person just like not maybe you can't even like swing melee weapon or something. Maybe you can farm resources in third person, but you like maybe like you just have to switch it and, you know, have a hotkey that's really nice on the keyboard that allows you to do it. But having it, and then like there's another thing with like, you know, if someone's far away, does the person do you just automatically get into first person mode? Even like, how does it would? And if somebody hits you,
it would have to be worked out.
Yeah. I don't know.
It would have to be. This was. We haven't done anything on this yet. It's more of just a concept.
Yeah.
That could work because it is a constantly debated issue, and it does get frustrating when you're like, you can sort of tell when you fight someone in third person, like you can tell when they're using third person, and you're sort of like, this doesn't feel evenly matched because I feel like they've got more awareness.
You yell at them with proximity chat, and then the game detects profanity, and if it detects profanity, it goes into first person.
I like that.
What I noticed just from even having played some Renown combat is where not even the awareness to me, but the swing manipulation you can do in third person because you don't lose sight of your character or your opponent. It was just so much more, and there's a pretty large parry window, so you have to sometimes really hit some long drags to get around it because it's very forgiving. And in third person, I mean, you can do some really nasty stuff. In first person, I sacrifice viewing my target if I'm going to do that. So you know, it's a trade-off. So that's where I notice a big difference between the two.
The genre is defined by the uniqueness of attacking your enemy by not looking at them. And third person takes that uniqueness away.
It's a very good point. It's a very contested topic in the development team, and one that I'm sure will continue to be contested until
Chivalry 2 has poisoned these kids' brains. It used to before Chivalry 2. Listen, before Chivalry 2, it used to be called the first person melee genre. That's what it used to be called.
Yeah, well, I just for
Chivalry
me,
2 is advertised as a first-person medieval slasher, and me and Dave are the only people who play in first person.
It's so weird.
For me, the reason why I like third person as well, I agree. No. It's not just like the advantages, but it's yes, it's that I can see, but it's like to me, it's a little bit more realistic because in first person, it's like looking at the world through a box like this, right?
Yes,
and like. In real life, you have peripheral vision, right? So to me, it feels more realistic that I can see a little bit more than this.
That's
right?
Again, that's another issue with Chivalry 2. They lock you at 110 FOV, and they also have the camera placed much lower and much further in. The camera in all the other slashes was further back and higher, to where the third person camera wasn't even that like different. It was like slightly behind the head, while the first person camera was slightly in front.
In Mordhau, they started modding it so you had like a fisheye, so you had a little bit more. Didn't they start doing that? Like they started zooming out the FOV in first person so much that you actually had a little bit more peripheral vision.
Well, like that's just people who set it to 150. Obviously, it's going to look a little warped, but
yeah. But I'm just saying, the peripheral vision is
Yes.
is an important thing, and like that's why I hate playing like first person shooters now, because I don't like looking at the world through a box, right?
Third person FPS game. My God, it just gives me flashbacks to people prone.
Skadii, you're not supposed to see them. You know, you aim with your hips, not your eyes.
Yeah.
Well, no, it makes sense in a duel. All right, sorry, go on.
No, I was just gonna say, for me, it's the thing that I think I like the most about first person is it adds an extra level of fear that you don't have.
Mm-hmm.
The awareness takes away. You feel a lot safer with third person. And I feel like a lot of these survival games, a lot of their appeal is the fear you feel constantly of like looking behind you, like, oh, okay, I'm good. I'm good here. Like, you know, that. And it's it's a tough one. We don't know yet, but
it totally makes sense in a survival. I totally agree with you guys. I would be fine with it being first person as a third person Andy myself, but yeah, I don't know.
I'll be happy either way, but I think that first person priority.
I'll be happier in first person.
It adds to the skill ceiling, definitely, of the swing manipulation.
Like I can say, like me and Dave, when we're in a 60-person, like pretty sweaty game, we're probably the only two people in first person. So, you know, I'd love to have everyone on an equal ground.
Shit 2 is like a totally different thing, because it's like, it's just so overpowered that you know. But I just prefer it in general, but like, I feel like you gotta...
I don't think it should not exist, right? Yeah. Like you said, first person only servers. I don't really see the point. I really don't. But I think that just having it exist, especially for like what Skadii said, the roleplay purposes, is a good enough reason to keep it in the game at all.
I agree.
I think you hit a great point about the adrenaline rush and the fear of these.
Yeah,
games,
that was a good point.
I think that's such a big part of the addiction factor with games like this, Escape from Tarkov, Dark and Darker, when you have legitimate risk around every corner and every time you turn your back and like you're bending down to loot or farm something and you got your ears going, you're afraid someone's going to dome you in the back of the head. I think that's a big thing that if you take that away, the genre kind of loses some of its appeal.
Just don't make the default FOV 90.
No, that's it's a hard one. It's one that I'm worried about, but I think we do need third person for from a business perspective of having the most people play the game, and
another tag on Steam. Third person.
So, I'm not one to ever we're making a melee / a survival game with no offline, with offline rating, where it's a pretty niche group of people already. So I don't mind the idea of at least appealing to some more players that are more RP, more PvE, more willing that love to see their own character in their nice decked out customized armor. It opens the gates for more people, and more people that are there that are hardcore to kill. Like those hardcore players will like those people that are there to stare at the character in third person. They're probably easier to take out.
They will be talking a ton of shit in VoIP to them.
Yeah, no, I mean more as in like the PvE players that want to see it as like a progression game and not so much a PvP game.
Mm-hmm. How will it be with PvE and stuff? How will it be for someone who's like kind of just hopping in solo and just wants to kind of build themselves a little base? Or is there going to be options for solo players? Or is everyone going to be in a group?
Yeah, no, you can play in solo. It's of course it's going to be a bit harder. We're trying to balance it to like four players plus. But solo's very viable if you're good. If you're not good, it might be a bit harder. But it's always going to be hard as a solo. I mean, any of these survival games, most people are at least in a duo or a 3-man. You come across them, you're going to have a hard time unless you're really good. A 1v2 you can probably take pretty easily. Like we've already had quite a few in this, like against a group of new players that have never played a game like this before. It is a little bit. You do feel a little bad sometimes when you just you just sort of just wipe the floor with them when you're the same gear. But
on that topic, right? Hard question for you. This genre, right? Extremely notorious for that super high skill ceiling and also super high skill floor. More importantly, how do you plan to make the game more accessible to those new players who are going to be playing in this new combat system and this new genre for the first time? And I guess more accurately, not how do you plan on getting them to learn it, right? But how do you plan on getting them from like the point of not knowing anything to where they can at least survive a little to start actually getting good?
Yeah. So, firstly, a thing we've tried to do, and I'm, you know, our programmer is the combat genius. At least he's the one who has designed the whole combat system and is a lot better of a combat player than I am. I sort of look after more of the survival side. But in the discussions we've had about the combat, we've tried to make that initial learning curve. It's always going to be steep at the very start, but we've tried to make that a little lower by allowing. Like, I think our parry window is decently like long.
That's what I mentioned earlier.
Yeah,
I noticed that right away. It was very forgiving.
Yes.
It's quite long. That initially would help when even just training someone. Secondly, we want when you spawn into we want players to spawn into a safe zone, where it is sort of like a starting town. And we are bordering MMO vibes here, but it's not going to really feel like that. It's just a small little walled off area that feels like a backwater of the map.
Like Minecraft factions?
I've never played it, but it could be something like that. And in this zone, there will be little dueling arenas with maybe some AI bots you can fight.
Nice.
But when the server wipes, all the players are going to be spread amongst either one, depending on the size of the server, or multiple of these safe zones. And it will be a great place. As soon as you spawn in, there will probably be people in these little duel arenas fighting each other, and they won't be able to kill each other. And initially, what we want to do is introduce players to the combat right away. This would probably also be the form of a tutorial before this, but we know people tend to like to skip those, even when they have no idea what the game is. And we want to have people, oh, look, there's some people fighting. I'm going to get involved. Oh, shit. I can't fight these people. What the hell? Then you'll want to stay there a little bit, at least gain a bit of understanding before you go out. And that's exactly what I experienced with a group of people I had come play with us, a group of my mates that had never played before, or a melee slasher at all. And the game sort of lit up for them when they got their hands on the combat system. And as soon as they had, at first, when we were fighting in the open world, I whomped them. But with 5 minutes of me just block these attacks, Okay, now try block this. Instantly, they were so much better than they were before then that I hope that will solve that. Sort of a long-winded way of answering the question. And I guess the final note is it's hard. It's hard. It's going to be a hard line to ride. We either cuck the combat system and it's easy for everyone, or it's the combat system we want, which is high skill.
Is that why you included like ranged weaponry, like archery and crossbows and stuff?
Yeah. Early, we want FPS players to have that option as well, to start off with. Recently I just made it that you can now craft the bow in your personal inventory. You can basically spawn in and craft a bow with just whatever you have around you, which I thought is a nice change because at least it makes you feel a bit safer as a new player.
How powerful is like a regular bow? Are they going to be, because that's a big thing for Chivalry players, is how annoying sometimes bows can be. But so yeah, I'm just wondering.
The design thought process we had was early game OP, late game negligible.
Yeah. So the higher gear tier you get, the less
armor.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so we have a deflection mechanic. So if you get hit with plate armor on by a bow, there's a very high chance it will just deflect off, doing very, very small amounts of damage. It will make you aim for places that aren't plated, or you just get a crossbow.
Will you be able to parry arrows like you?
No.
Okay.
If you want to stop arrows hitting you, you'll have to get a
shield.
shield. But again, bolts, you'll be more worried about bolts with armor than you would arrows, because how we want it to be is that the archers are really roaming weapons. You might less likely see someone in a full less likely to see someone in a full plate of armor out.
Will shields be like force field or hitbox accurate?
Their hitbox to a degree, they're quite wide. This is something constantly changing. Their box is quite wide.
I don't mind either, by the way. Like, I don't mind. I played Shiv 1, and in Shiv 1 they were hitbox accurate, like laser, right?
Yeah.
To where like if you were an archer, you could shoot the tippy toes, and in Shiv 2, they're more like force fields.
For archery, you can shoot around them, but for parrying, they're quite like you can. They're directional for parry, but it's wider than the shield, if that makes sense. Like you can't. Yeah. It's harder to stab around it.
I meant for archery specifically.
Archery, no. That's it's accurate to the size of the shield. You can shoot their feet and their head if it's like the tip over it.
In Shiv 2, the shield actually breaks. Like quite quickly actually, and so they made it to where like it's sort of like a power up. Like when you actually have the shield, it's literally like a force field. Even the tiniest shield that's not even bigger than your head can block every arrow all around your body. But then it breaks. So that's why I was thinking like maybe if you're investing the resources into a shield and a one-handed weapon, how much of a benefit is that compared to making like I don't know a messer or a maul or something that isn't protecting you from arrows?
That's a great question, actually, and we have thought about that a bit with just what shields' purposes are. And one of we have two issues here. Like we right now, you can sort of the early game shields, you can basically just shoot their feet. Like if you're standing still and you're crouching, you can sort of get their feet. They're much more likely to close the gap, and then you're in trouble. But that's an interesting idea. Like I might think about making it so that if you do have a shield, except of course not a buckler, but if you have a Viking round shield to kite shield, it does block your body. But I also like that the increase in tier of shield gets you more block of like more area coverage.
Could you hold block like in Chivalry 1, or is it?
Yeah.
Oh wow. Okay, so that's a clear benefit.
Is it a held block with stamina? Is there? Sorry, I don't know if you said this. Is there stamina drain with the shield blocking?
I think when you move around, that's something that's changed a lot. We're in the process of tweaking how the shields work because right now it's held block. If you kick them, they fall down. You get a free hit, basically.
So actually,
they actually fall down. They don't just stagger. Okay, wow. Sweet.
Right now, they get knocked onto their like back.
Do kicks do anything while they're in mid attack or like without a shield? Is it because
not really?
Okay,
no. Like that.
So it's similar to Shiv, where Shiv 2
it does. Yeah, it does 10 damage. It does. It's some negligible. You can get in. You can juke. Like you can get a hit in.
Like you can blast kick. You can Sparta kick.
Is it
for
like
the last hit,
where armor increases your kick damage?
I actually think it might be. Because I think it's blunt. Because I think it's blunt damage as well. It does get more damage through if they are in like plate. I think as well. That's something I'm not entirely sure. We're constantly changing shields because it's so hard with shields because as a person that doesn't play this combat system, shield, oh my god, yes, why would I not have a shield? Then you hold block because you don't understand what the combat system is, and you get kicked down again and again.
When I played, the shield players were basically free kills because people just mobbed them, kicked, and then they're on the ground. And
random question, dude: do blunt weapons have hit stop?
To lead the charge for archery, so
do blunt weapons have hit stop?
Do they actually
I know
cleave?
Yeah, I think they do cleave. They cleave on enemies. They don't on friendly players. If you hit there's hit stop on friendly.
Do any weapons cleave on friendly players?
No, I don't think so. Now that I think about it. Yeah, they all hit stop on friendly players. But I'm pretty sure all weapons cleave, even blunt weapons. Yeah.
Okay, and would you say? Would you say? Are there any like? How can I say this? Charged attacks after getting a running start, like in Chivalry 1. In Chivalry 1,
no, we don't have that yet. We don't have the Vanguard
sprint attacks.
But we'd like that. Yeah, we'd like that at some point.
In Chivalry 1, it was the Vanguard sprint charge. And in Chivalry 2, each class has their own unique one, which I kind of like.
Oh, that's cool.
Knights can tackle. Footmen can, not men-at-arms anymore, footmen can like do a running sprint charge with the spear in front of them, which is super OP because it's like an active hitbox that stands in front of them
while
sick. They're running. It's pretty freaking OP. And then the Vanguard has like the leaping, strike where they do a jump attack. So I was curious if that was in. I don't care either way. I'm just saying.
I think something like that would be a pretty cool system. It could be. I guess it depends on how it's implemented. But that could be something to look at. Yeah.
On the combat topic, I know in one of the blogs recently it said that you guys were going to be doing. I don't remember if it was an animation pass, but another pass at combat. What can we be expecting coming here soon? Because I know it seems like you guys built the base so far, and now we're getting to refining.
So what's happened is we found out that for an animator to create animations for a game like this, they need to know what the combat system is, because we hired like 3 animation people, great animators, but without understanding what the combat system, it's very confusing for them. So, okay, so when you attack, it does a swing. It's like, well, yes, but also not really at all.
There's wind up, there's release, there's feints.
It's very intricate morphs, the transitions between those. We have our animation. We basically wrote out our animation list, and it's something like 1,700 animations or something like that.
Wow.
It's when you get into it, it's like, wow, there's quite a lot of animation. All the transitions from each attack, like canceling where that goes to then to a parry, and then all the stuff. We all know it. So we're like, we have to do this ourselves. We can't keep hiring people and losing money hoping that they'll understand when, if they don't already understand, it's not our job to like try and teach them that. It's ways we already have all this other work we need to do. They need to just come on board and do it. So we're like, okay, we need to just do it ourselves. So my father owns a virtual production studio in Epic.
The motion capture.
Yeah, and he had
I knew it was real. I knew it was real.
Yeah, so he has it's a virtual production is when you track a camera, instead of using green screen, you replace it with just a big fuck off monitor, and you just have people stand in front of this monitor, and it just removes green screen. Everything's in camera, and to do that, you need a very accurate tracking system. So they have access to we have access to those cameras. Though they're still in the middle of guess setting up or not moving, but like changing how they're operating. So we haven't been able to get a chance to go in there yet. But we basically just need to buy the license, some suits, and we've already done some workshop sessions where we learned how to use it. We had someone come in, train us all how to clean up mocap animation, record mocap animation. We have a motion capture actor that is, she's amazing, and she taught us all how to do it properly and how to get realistic motion, and she's on board to want to come in and help us. So it's all ready. It's just the thing with these industries is it takes, you think you're ready to go, and then there's something happens, or
getting things to production is tough. Yeah.
Can I ask who on the team is the sword swinging guy?
Yeah, so that will be KZ, our lead artist. So he'll be swinging the swords, and then we're all trained with how to record and calibrate the system and how to do the initial cleanup. And then, at least the Australian guys are trained, so we'll all go in together and try and do it all really quickly. And then, of course, there's the whole cleanup process. It's an extremely long process, and when you're thinking about cleaning up 1,700 animations, which I try not to think about, we're just going to start with something simple like longsword locomotion and just take it from there,
Okay, then I have one last question that I'll ask you for myself, and then I'll let them take it over. So, again, we're all from Chivalry 2, right? So I'm sorry for all the Chivalry 2 questions, but
no, it's good,
Chivalry 2 has some weapons that sort of divert from the norm being overhead / stab done, right? But some of them are actually quite interesting. So, for example, the Qatar are the fastest weapons in the game, but they don't flinch on hit. And the quarterstaff is kind of just a mid weapon in general that doesn't really do much in team objective. It's not that good of a weapon, but it takes like half stamina damage when blocking, which makes it this like super OP defensive weapon that like you never get outstammed ever.
That's cool.
Yeah. So I just wanted to ask, like, are there any weapons that you guys plan on adding that might just be like functioning a little differently from the rest? Obviously, like the spear is going to do mainly stab damage and its overheads are going to be pitiful, but like, I mean, a little bit more than that.
We've thought about that a little bit with specifically actually spears and having the ability to sort of like have interesting attacks that function a bit differently for like stabbing over, say, someone with a shield in front of you or things like that. It's been something that we've discussed. It's something we're very cautious of, usually, because in survival games, if there is something that is slightly better, it becomes the only thing that everyone uses. If there is something to be taken advantage of, people will take advantage of it to the degree in which it's actually almost like ridiculous. Like everyone is using this one thing. Now, of course, that's just it's like balancing anything. But until we have that foundation there, we don't really want to introduce anything that could potentially have that outcome. But it's a cool idea, and I personally have some ideas of different weapon types that could be like with different different combat systems, which I won't really get into because it's sort of just like inside my brain ideas of a new way of combat like this. But
usually Torn Banner makes them laughably bad because they hate me. So like the Katars suck, even though they're super fast.
Oh god, yeah, they're trash. I'm more into the normal weapons. So
Yeah,
I know me and Dave won't agree here.
But I find it quite interesting how you can change just a little bit of behavior and the fighting style changes massively. Like
are there going to be flails?
Oh god, yep.
We've got one that we're working on. We changed it a bit because it was sort of like it's a weird weapon. So we do want to have a flail though, but we removed it for the time being because it was just odd. But we do want to have that.
We've all been dying for a flail. We've been begging, kicking down the devs' doors to try to get a flail.
How did Mordhau never have one? Yeah. It's beyond me.
Yeah, I didn't know it didn't.
There's physics and stuff. Well, it depends on how you want to do the flail, right? Like, do you want to like animate the chain and make it all physics based, or
you do that, so then you just make the animation stagnant. That not physics based.
I played the Ninja Turtle games in like the 90s, and they had nunchucks, so I don't want any excuses here.
I'll get it in for you. I'll put it on top priority list.
There we go. Right up at the top.
Yeah.
All
right. We're getting about the time here. Jesse, is there anything you want to put in just before?
And also dates for anything that you have will be nice.
So we're getting close to dropping NDA because the survival side is getting pretty good. We did want to wait till animations were in a better state, but as I just mentioned, that could be a while longer. So we're going to be dropping our Indiegogo soon as like fantastic, that's all done and wrapped up, because we now also have people able to back and play the game on our website. It just feels a bit odd having multiple options and stuff like that, and that was successful for its job to get us up and running a few years ago, so it feels strange that just running in the background. We're going to have some more videos coming out soon with some YouTubers that are creating some stuff for us, and so a lot of new content that maybe a lot of people haven't seen. We're going to try and push the idea that the survival side is playable and enjoyable for people to come. That's what we've been doing recently, so we want people to come and try it out. We need the feedback. We just need to know what people think of the gameplay. And that we have weekly tests. So if you're interested in jumping on board, you can. And that's basically it. Just keep an eye out for the game, I guess.
When's the NDA going to get dropped? You mentioned that earlier, but
yeah. So I'm hoping roughly maybe like a month or a bit more than a month. Maybe 2 months.
Okay.
We can hope. We're getting close because
now we're talking.
It's feeling pretty good. Of course, and again, it's back to the transparency thing. Like we want, it looks rough. Like the animations are rough. It's a rough game, but we need people's eyes on it, and we need people to get out there and try it and understand that we're a small team. We're trying something new,
the rough but original.
Yeah, so like we're okay with it looking rough, and we just want people to see the improvements we're making. Basically, yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, no, I know we're all very excited to get our hands a little further on it as it gets further in development. As I said, we've talked about the game a few times on here as something that, our communities are excited for, we're excited for. So, thank you so much for joining us, Jesse. I mean, it's been a great time just talking about, game development, Renown, and the slasher genre in general. It's been a blast, man. So thank you so much for joining us.
No problem at all, and it was a pleasure properly meeting you all, and thank you so much for having me. I really, really do appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, man.
Much love, brother.
Thank you.
All right, gentlemen. I know. Me, Skadii, and Dave will be hanging around on stream. I don't know if we're gonna get into some Chivalry or what the deal is, but love to all, and we'll be back in 2 weeks for the next episode. All right, Knights of the Square Tablet out.
I'd see you guys.
Bye, everybody.
See you guys.
Oh man! All right, I think that went pretty good, boys. We can talk.
Fantastic.
Yes.
It was a good time,
okay,
gentlemen.
I'm going now. I have a match.
Mr. Dave. Oh no.